Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Shouting into the Void with myself, Connor, and Liam, who is still joining me from afar because this pandemic is still going on because our government cannot get itself together. But what can you do? Who knows? We might get to Jodie Whittaker by the time we're out of this lockdown.
I don't know.
Oh, okay, maybe not. Maybe we'll have to wait.
Maybe number 15.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. But anyway, we are here rewatching all of the modern Doctor Who, starting from 2005. In case you're not caught up, we're on episode 6, Dalek, which really, who's the villain in this piece?
Silurians.
So, if you hadn't guessed, the plot for this is there's a Dalek. It's basically it. To be fair, the Doctor and Rose land in a underground museum in the distant future of 2012, and and they quickly discover there's actually a live Dalek down in the basement. Obviously, this episode is very heavily filling in missing story from before this series. But yeah, they effectively have to escape the Dalek and make sure nobody else dies. So what did you think?
I bloody loved it. I think it's probably my favourite so far. I do love The Unquiet Dead, but I think this one does top it. The stakes are really high. I feel like it really changes up the series going forward now. I think the series becomes a lot darker after this episode. I think everyone's on top form. I think the Dalek's just great, a really cool baddie. And a big game changer episode, I think.
Yeah, I really love this episode. There is one big negative for this episode, but that's all I could really come up with. There's a couple. I've got a couple of nitpicky negatives, but other than that,
all of mine are basically nitpicks.
Yeah, it was easy to come up with 3 bests for this. Overall, really good episode. It flew by, and it does a good bit of foreshadowing, I think, for the series finale, especially. But yeah, I guess we'll sort of start with your first top bit, I guess.
Yes. Christopher Eccleston.
Yep.
Easily his best performance so far, potentially the best performance he gives in Doctor Who. Just brilliant. He's so casual and stuff at the start and kind of in his element with all the alien tech. And then just the moment he hears that Dalek's voice and you can see the fear and then it turns into anger. Like, oh my goodness. This man is good. And he just loses it. Like, I think this is the best episode. I think that shows a whole range of emotions because even he's always great, and the finale, the stakes are high and everything. This series, but right from the off in the finale, they're kind of thrown into it, so he doesn't have as much chance to be funny because things are so tense. But he gets a bit of that near the start of this one. So yeah, he's just sublime.
Yeah, that's fair enough. My top one was 9 / Eccleston as well. And there's one moment that I picked out was when he's talking to the Dalek the first time, and the Dalek's kind of like, "Oh, so we're like the same." You see Eccleston's lip just twinge a little bit, and I'm like, "That's some very good acting."
Yeah, and when do that. He foams at the mouth when he's shouting at it later on, and I read Chris Eccleston insisted that was the take they used in the final thing. He's like, "Oh, I got really into it, and I spat everywhere. Use that one."
But, I agree. Definitely, Chris Eccleston was the top bit. Even at the start when he sees the Cyberman head, you see there's a bit of almost sadness to it, which is strange considering they're a bad guy. But yeah, you can see his sadness there, and then it only grows to anger, and then even more concern and horror when he's being tortured, dissected, whatever you want to call it, by Van Satin. Even then, he's still like, I need to help you. You need to stop doing this. Because no matter what else is happening to him, he knows that there's a bigger threat, out there in this museum.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably one of his best ones. I think it's on the level with his performance in the series finale. Mm-hmm. I think these 2 performances are probably his top ones all series.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, both with the Daleks. But yeah, he does a really good job of showing a man face to face with his literal worst enemy who he thought he'd killed because he'd lost literally everything to get rid of.
Mhm.
But yes, I agree. My second best point then is Van Statten,
Oh,
Mr. Henry Van
okay.
Statten, because and I don't know what it is, but I've always liked his character because he's just like I can believe him, and I could almost like I don't dislike him. He annoys me, and I think I think he's got his motivations in the wrong place, but I can understand where he's coming from, and I can understand what he's doing. And also, the actor's really good job of making him like this weird, charming businessman,
Yeah, he
which
is very
I
good.
liked. Um, yeah, and I get the whole point where he's like, "Look, I found all this cool stuff. I'm going to keep it in the museum." He's basically Elon Musk. That's who he is. He's Elon Musk before Elon Musk was a big meme.
Mm.
Um, and I enjoyed his character. I enjoyed the actor, and I think it's we don't get the because he's not even like a villain. He's just kind of not there, but he's like an not an anti-hero either because he does eventually help save the day, but at the same time, it's his fault.
Yeah.
But then how was he to know anyway?
Mm.
But then you could argue he shouldn't be torturing something that's clearly alive.
Yeah. Just so
Uh,
it could talk to him.
yes,
And he
yes,
was like, "Oh, these men are expendable. I don't want to
yeah,
scratch on that paint
yeah.
job." Blah, blah,
So,
blah.
and I think he kind of goes through a bit of realization throughout the episode. He kind of realizes, hang on a minute, these people shouldn't be dying. But
Mm.
then he doesn't go far enough. And
No.
I think, and this isn't in my worst, but I think part of me doesn't like the way he's disposed of at the end, where
Okay.
he's just sort of gone. I know it sort of comes back to the start where he says, "Oh, get rid of this man and dump him somewhere." I get that
Yeah.
that's it's happening to him, but it's still kind of unceremonious for a character that we'd spent literally most of the episode with.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But what can you do? I thought that would be a bit of a wild card best. But
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just think he was an interesting character. It was a character with depth. He wasn't just put there for the sake of being there, I guess.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. What
And
was
this is a perfect opportunity for
oh
one of my fun facts,
yes.
because originally Van Statten was going to have a whole family in this episode, and Adam
Oh,
was going to be his son.
oh,
And in the early drafts of this script, he
oh.
turned into a Dalek at the end.
Oh, I wonder where they use that.
Yeah,
Oh
I imagine they never recycled that idea.
no, no.
So I thought that was funny.
A businessman definitely did not get turned into a Dalek in a later episode.
No, definitely not.
Escapes my mind.
Never.
Um,
No.
the fact that he'd have a family would be interesting because I guess he kind of does have that family dynamic with in the episode with Diana and with Adam, I guess. Although
Yeah, I think
Diana,
it would have made Adam maybe a bit more interesting if he had just been Van Statten's son.
well, yeah, Adam would have been a bit more interesting, especially if Van Statten had been killed by the Dalek. You could have done a whole thing with Adam on like a war path, and that would make his actions in the next episode kind of make more sense.
Yeah.
But we'll come on to Adam in a bit. Uh, your second best.
The Dalek and
Mhm,
how it was characterized. I think this is one of the best individual Daleks Doctor Who's had.
mhm.
The fact that you could see a bit of sadness in it when Rose said it wasn't afraid of it, but then instantly it was like, "Oh, I'm glad I met a human before I die that isn't afraid." So it's like, is that just it manipulating Rose to touch it? Is that just part of the grand plan? I think that would make more sense in terms of like its character arc. So yeah, I really enjoyed that, and just how self-hatred kind of overcame it when it was mutating and realized it wasn't really a Dalek anymore. It's like, well, I'm a head out and kill myself.
Yep.
It's very beautifully ironic that it becomes a bit human in that sense and then kills itself. And the Daleks in the finale are like half human and they're like, cool, we hate ourselves, but we're going to stay alive. So kind of like that kind of bit of foreshadowing with it. Yeah, very, very good Dalek, ironically.
Fair enough. That's actually my third best bit is the sort of Dalek threat. I specifically thought throughout this episode, I was like, this just shows the sort of the power that one Dalek can have.
Yeah.
I think we lose that a little bit as the show goes on in New Who. I think we lose the threat of just a single Dalek. They
Yeah,
try and do it.
with the exception of like when it shoots the walls around Rose, like every single shot hits someone or something.
Yeah, yeah. That's it. Is that you see it kill a lot of people. Like there are a lot of lingering shots on dead bodies when he exterminates them all with the water.
Yeah, and he turned the cameras back on so the Doctor could watch him kill all those
Yeah.
people.
And I think that also like sets up the finale really well because you've had this previous encounter with a Dalek where you can see how ferocious it is, and now you see this whole army coming at the Doctor and Rose in the finale, and you're like, oh, if that's what one Dalek could do, what could like 100,000 do? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I enjoyed that. My one thing with the end when it sort of kills itself, why do Daleks have self-destruct in them when that doesn't blow anything else up? If they're like killing machines, why kill
Yeah.
themselves?
I don't know.
I don't think it's shown again in New
Maybe
Who,
if they're like infected with a parasite or something, maybe. I don't know.
perhaps, but it just sort of dawned on
Because it
me
looks
watching
really
this.
cool, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, it looks good, but it dawned on me watching this. I was like, why do they have that? Why?
Yeah, can you imagine like, oh, by the way, you're all screwed. And it just blows up and takes them all with him.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, why does it? I don't know, but that's a very small thing. And I did want to point out, like, yeah, is it manipulating Rose to touch it when she arrives? Because we're told that it's been on Earth for 50 years, just being like traveled around, and it's been tortured and whatever. So part of me wants to think that maybe it is actually just like finally broken down. But then again, we know from future episodes, from all the lore around it, that Daleks sort of have this eagerness to continue no matter how sort of beaten they are. So
Yeah.
another part of me thinks that maybe it's trying to manipulate Rose, but then it's never met her before. It does. So there's all this kind of stuff that you could throw in. But
Yeah. You can interpret it both ways, which I think works.
yeah, and then I like there's a scene where, and this gets pointed out on social media a fair bit, where it's like, oh, that Dalek can calculate a number of combinations, like in a second flat or whatever, and then it takes a good like 5-10 seconds to do it while we see everyone waiting for the door.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
I'm there going, right, I can see why people would find that annoying, but at the same time, this is still a damaged Dalek. It's not up to full speed. I'm going to let it slide. Because it's been tortured. It's probably not exactly, you try working out a combination for a lock after being tortured for how many years.
I couldn't do it, having not been tortured.
Exactly. But yeah, overall, the Dalek and the whole threat of just this lone single Dalek in this base and just how murderous it can be was top notch.
Yes, agreed.
So in that case, what was your third top?
The theme of survivor's guilt in both the Doctor and the Dalek, and the fact that both of these characters who are going through that, being like the last survivor of the Time War, the episode also explores how Rose influences both of them, because her potential death could make the Doctor's guilt even worse and something else for him, and he's kind of very strongly hinting that he's grown very attached to her. The Dalek says, the woman you love, and Rose physically affects the Dalek as well because she makes it a bit more human. It can feel emotions and stuff, and that kind of drives it to kill itself. So I thought that was a very unique theme that a lot of shows I don't think really explore that much, but like especially not in like a genre like this, like survivor's guilt. So I thought that was cool, and yeah, I thought it was just a very clever way, especially like halfway through the series. I think this episode is very well placed to explore something like that because we've had half the series like, oh, exactly what went on with this war. And now we're meeting like both sides of it, the last survivors. I thought it was very well done.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That whole confrontation at the start between the Doctor and the Dalek is really up there with some good TV. Because just the acting from Christopher Eccleston, the fact that both of these lone survivors, even though we now know the Time Lord survived and the Daleks always survive. So even though they're not the only survivors, they still think that, they still believe that, and you can see the pain in sort of both of them.
Yeah.
But then you can see the overriding hatred come out in both of them as well, with the Doctor basically telling the Dalek to kill itself twice before going so far as to get a gun and go and shoot it himself. And willing to risk the lives of all the soldiers to try and, the soldiers, the the technicians, the lawyers, as he says, to give him a gun and try and fight rather than get him out and get him to safety. He sends them to their deaths, and that kind of shows the Doctor that we never really see in this show. We see a bit in the War Doctor in the 50th, but we never see this again, really. But yeah, so I don't know whether that's his hatred or his guilt further, because he thinks I need to get rid of this Dalek to make it actually worth it. But it all goes to shit when they all come back in the end. So
they always come back.
An additional plus for me is the female soldier that dies when Rose and Adam leave. I don't know. It's just a moment that's always stuck with me, where it's just this lone soldier trying to destroy this Dalek as it slowly advances on her, and you can.
Yeah, and she's kind of like, you know, I accept that we tortured you. That was probably wrong as well. I liked that she was very balanced before she was instantly killed.
Yeah, and then like even in like the acting from her when she's firing the gun, and you can see that she's fighting back the tears. And then whether she's blinking because the gun's going off or blinking to hold the tears back, I don't know. But either way, either way, I'm like Jesus, and that also adds to the the fact that this Dalek is horrifying. But yeah, but overall, some pretty good points. So how nitpicky are your worsts?
I mean, they're all really kind of nitpicky because I thought, I will admit, going into this, I was like, well, Adam's going to be a negative. He's fine. He didn't annoy me, so I didn't he's involved in a negative that I had like nitpicky, but I didn't actively say Adam sucks, because that I'll be saving for next week. But yeah, I have a few nitpicky ones.
Go on, what's your first?
Well, Adam was a bit annoying, but I didn't quite buy the Doctor just letting him come with them at the end. I thought that was strange. I know Rose was like putting his leg and everything, but after he accepted like Mickey and asked him to come along, he'd seen what he was really capable of. They spent a bit of time together at that point. He spends like 2 minutes of this episode with Adam. So to him, just be like, okay, fine, I'll take your word for it. Let him come along. I was like, I don't know.
Maybe he just felt guilty for almost killing Rose, that he was like, better let her have this one.
Yeah, maybe.
better let him in. Yeah, my first worst is Adam overall. I'll read you through my notes. So first of all, we've got Adam can fuck off. This is where we first meet him. Let's keep going down. Again, Adam can fuck off. And then I've got Rose humors him, like when he's talking about the aliens in his weird cupboard. And I was like, how can he collect all these artifacts but not believe that people can be abducted by aliens?
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense to me. Then I also went, Adam is an arrogant prick, because he's just like, oh yeah, I'm a genius, I have a high IQ, and I'm like, oh, shut up. And I keep going down, and then again, Adam can fuck off. And I think that's it. I just didn't like him. I thought he was very arrogant, quite annoying. Basically, he's the smartest. He's clearly like this kind of smartest guy on the base, other than maybe Van Statten. And then the Doctor comes up and clearly shows that he's even smarter, and that I think gets under Adam's skin. Luckily, we don't see Adam as much after he goes to the cage with Rose. He's sort of sidelined after that. So he's kind of there as a way to get Rose to the Dalek first, and then it kind of moves on from that. But as to why Rose likes him, again, Nine's like, oh, he's a bit pretty, which is that's clearly where her motivations are at. But also he clearly reminds her of the Doctor, but as a human, because obviously he does that whole scene where he's like, oh, it's fantastic, and she's like, oh, you're like him. Yeah. Which,
because no one else has ever said the word fantastic except the Doctor.
Which also feels very forced as well. And I don't know why they needed to bring in this character from a writing standpoint. I don't know. I don't know what. Maybe there's some trivia somewhere. Maybe there's a footnote in some Wikipedia page saying, "Oh, he was brought in, blah 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 blah."
Yeah,
maybe...
I do know they decided he didn't work. He was going to stick around longer.
Yeah,
they got rid of him.
He didn't work in that episode, let alone the second one. But yeah, maybe they wanted Mickey in to start with, but Noel Clark was like, "Soz, my schedule's busy," and they had to get someone else in. I don't know. But either way, I don't think he's necessary in this episode. He's definitely not necessary in the next one. Especially because most of his characters like sidelined anyway. He's doing his own thing. But yeah, didn't like him. Soz.
I got that.
I can be as mean as I want. He's a convicted criminal, so
True.
But never mind. What was your other nitpick?
People being stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get Rose felt sorry for the Dalek, but like, you don't know where that Dalek's been. Why are you touching it? It looks filthy as hell.
Yeah.
So there's that. The Dalek starts elevating, and they're all just like staring at it, waiting for it to like come and find them. Like, fucking run, Jesus! And then the Doctor clearly knows this creature, knows its weakness and stuff. And like, thank you, Doctor. I know how to fight a tin robot. You moron! You deserve that death.
Yeah.
It's just aggravating. But again, those are nitpicky because people suck.
Yep. Fair enough. My next few are quite nitpicky as well, because again, after Adam, all I can think of is sort of minor nitpicks. First of all, they spent so much energy trying to close the bulkhead that they can just reopen it again with no problem whatsoever. That's true, yeah. There's no power issues. There's no worries. It's not, oh, it's going to collapse. It's, okay, yeah, all right, we'll just reopen it then, I guess. So that kind of lost a bit of weight.
It's so dramatic, that sequence. I forgot, like, oh, Van Staten needs to look down at it. Then the Doctor needs to look down at it. Diana needs to look down at
it. Press the enter key. That's fine. And then also, right, the lift to Van Staten's office works, despite all the power being out. How can they still use the lift? That's another thing that bothers me. There was a couple of other. It's, why doesn't Rose run faster?
She's got a bronze in gymnastics. Why are you not?
If you see this thing killing all of these people, I don't care. I would just bomb it. I wouldn't. It's not like you're just running for the bus. You know, there's a killing machine coming for you. Run faster. Do whatever it takes.
It was probably because the plot needed her to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's obviously because of the plot.
Rose, did you make it? It just cuts to her like cut in half in the door.
Yeah. But yeah, that it's a plot point, but at the same time, I'm like, at least, like, I don't know, you can have them run full pelt and still not make it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's just my thing. Also, I've forgotten his name. Oh, Simmons is a psychopath.
You're not wrong.
There's like a bit where he's like, "Oh, Simmons, make it talk," and he's like, "My pleasure," and he's got like this horrible look on his face. I'm like, "Oh, I'm so glad you die." It's like, what are you gonna do? Sucker me to death? Yes.
Yes,
I am. That's exactly what I'm gonna do.
That's the last word. Imagine that being your last words.
Oh, sucker me to death. Yeah, kind of annoyed me. Other than that, I mentioned the Dalek's self-destruct. That doesn't make any sense to myself. That's kind of it for my. I did want to point out that I've criticized Rose for having a lack of compassion in earlier episodes, and obviously this is I don't know where this is in her arc. Maybe at the midpoint where she realizes, maybe compassion sometimes isn't the right way to go with aliens.
Yeah.
Because obviously a lot of the time, in a lot of the episodes, she's shown a fair bit of compassion towards side characters that we've seen, obviously with Gwyneth, kind of with Harriet Jones in the part 2. And in this one, again, she's trying the whole, she's basically doing what the Doctor would do, saying, how can we help kind of thing, which is good. There's some good, that's what a companion should be doing. And it's her first interaction with the Daleks, naturally. But I wouldn't look at that and say, that must be a nice alien.
Yeah.
Like if you see military people pointing guns at you, coming at you, you're like, I guess they're friendly. You wouldn't. And then even just to touch it as well is a bit of a. But I get that it's all part of the character. She's still learning. This is only her third. Well, in TV, this is only her. Is it third trip in the TARDIS technically?
End of the world. I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So it's only her third time out. She didn't really have that much to do to interact with the Slitheen before it started killing everyone. Because the first time she saw it, it literally killed someone. So
Yeah.
So and I get she hasn't had that much interaction with violent alien species, at least. But what can you do? I don't know. A couple they're like really small nitpicks. None of them like dampen the episode for me. There's not a point where I'm like, oh god, it really ruins it.
Yeah.
But are there any other worst points for you?
I had one more, and it's more like it's not really a negative, more like a if only.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought like Van Staten talking about his influence on like the internet and like withholding the common cold and everything. I thought that was really interesting, but there just isn't enough time in the episode to explore it a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have been cool if they had more time to kind of delve into that a bit more. But again, I'm not mad and hold it against the episode that that's not explored. It just would have been cool if they had.
Yeah. What Van Staten reminds me of is the businessman from recent episodes of Doctor Who. I've forgotten his name. With Jodie's doctor.
Robertson.
Yeah, him. It reminds me a lot of him because they are basically the same person, except Robertson's more traditional business, whereas
this
Van
is a
Staten
pure disaster.
Exactly. Whereas Van Staten's, and they're both American. Van Staten's more extraterrestrial. But yeah, I do like the idea that he's got all this tech and he's doing all this other stuff, and I like the idea that there's these kinds of independent organizations around the world that are hoarding alien tech. We kind of see it next season with Torchwood and all their alien tech that they've got. Although they use it and they argue that they're providing the British public with something, whereas Van Staten's in it for pure profit.
Yeah.
And I guess you can kind of see it right at the start where he gets the tiny piece of alien tech that Adam spent £800,000 on, which is also a ridiculous price. But Van Staten like learns how to do it and then just chucks it away. It's like, good, it's a musical instrument, that's not of use to me. It's cool, I know how to do it, but I'm not making money from this. Get rid. Which is strange considering he has all of those weapons in that storage room that he's not gone through yet. You think that would be top notch. But yeah, and then the other thing that I thought was quite strange was the stuffed Slitheen arm in the museum. I just thought it was too soon after the previous episode. I think it would have been better if maybe it was like an Auton arm or a head or something. Just to sort of harken back, because like you sit there and you're like, oh yeah, we just saw that. Like the Sideman's cool because that's a classic Sideman, that that's something for the older fans. But seeing the Slitheen arm's a bit like, all right.
We just 2 weeks of those bastards.
We just saw it. I'm like, what do you want? Do people love Slitheen that much? They wouldn't come back unless they saw it next week.
Because there's so many Slitheen toys in the first wave of stuff, they just need them to be in it.
Maybe, but yeah, I thought it would have been much better if they used like an Auton, even like the arm that the Doctor had, maybe just put it on there or something like that. I thought would have been more interesting, but that is a very big nitpick for myself. Yeah, I think that's mainly sort of it for me. I don't think there are any more points. I like that he called it the Metaltron.
Yeah.
And I like the way the Doctor said metal. Like metal. I was like, oh, that's good.
I also enjoyed the Doctor being like, what are you going to do? Throw A levels at them? That was a very good line.
Yeah. So, yeah, overall, 9's really good in this. This episode is quite high for me, I think. So I guess, one thing, this is the first time we hear Murray Gold's Dalek music.
Right.
And I think it's some of the most iconic music to come out of Doctor Who, I think, since it came back, other than, the main theme and a couple of other bits. I think Dalek music is something that you hear instantly and think, hang on a minute, where are the Daleks coming from?
Yeah.
And I mean, it sticks around. It goes through a few variations, but it sticks around a bit, and I quite like it.
Yeah, me too.
What were your thoughts on?
I also have a few more fun facts.
Yeah.
If people are so interested, I'm sure they are, but I wrote them down anyway. This is actually adapted from a Big Finish story called Jubilee with
Oh.
Colin Baker's Doctor about a single Dalek in a parallel world, written by the same guy. So he's brought back to adapt it, which I thought was fun. The Doctor's pain and anger at the Dalek was all Christopher Eccleston. He was scripted to be a lot more casual with the Dalek, but Christopher Eccleston was like, "No, sir," and the writer got really pissed at him for that. But then when he saw the first takes of it, he was like, "Yeah, he's absolutely right." They weren't sure they were going to get the rights to the Daleks, so Rusty Davies had to come up with another monster instead, and he made the Toclophane, which he then reused in Series 3. So he was sitting on those for a few years before he used them. And this is one of the few occasions in the new series where there are no scenes inside the TARDIS. So there you go.
Oh, very true. I was like, they come out and they go back in at the end. No, yeah, fair enough. It's strange because I think Doctor Who has a weird habit of adapting previous stories that weren't TV. Obviously, Family of Blood and Human Nature is one, I think. I think that was a book before it became the show.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And obviously it'll be very interesting because this is one of the episodes that's being turned into the Target novelization next month. So it'll be very interesting to see what gets added into this. I can't see them adding too much. Maybe a bit more backstory to Diana and that woman soldier. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more for Adam. But
I feel like, because they cut a lot of his backstory out of the long game, so they could just put that in the Dalek.
Well, that's it, because in the next episode we see his mum at the end, and that's it.
Oh, I love that scene.
Right, so you've mentioned this is probably one of your favorite episodes. So what would you give it out of 10?
I'm torn between a 9 and a 9.5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What would you give it? And then I'll decide.
I'm going for a 9.
Okay.
For myself.
Interesting.
Because I know it's one of my favorite, but it's not my favorite episode of series 1. We've not got to mine yet, but at the minute, this is from what we've watched, this is my top, and I know I don't think I've come anywhere near a 9 yet, so it's a 9 for me.
Yeah, that's true. I think I'll agree with that. I did write 9 down on my notes with like the potential to add a 0.5 if I change my mind. But yeah, I think 9's pretty good because there was like some potential. I think they could have explored more if they had more time and stuff. So yes, I don't want to get in the trap of rating things so highly so soon.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I keep thinking. I'm like, we're not gonna. But next episode, it's gonna plummet all the way down.
Yeah, this is going to kill the averages.
So obviously, next episode is the long game, which in the next time trailer you see has features special guest cast Simon Pegg. So what are your expectations for the next episode?
I expect to not enjoy it as much as any of the others so far. I know it sets up the finale and everything, but I don't think they even needed to set up the finale. It could have just been happening. So yeah, I expect Simon Pegg to be good because I always remembered enjoying Simon Pegg in it. I think he is good. I'm looking forward to the scene with the mum at the end. That's almost certainly going to be a positive, I think. But yeah, I think it will be my least favorite so far.
Yeah, I'm hoping I'm going to like it more than I remember. But it was always this and Father's Day were the 2 episodes where I'd always skip over when I was rewatching when I was younger. But now that I'm more mature, I do like
with your little pating pop in the background.
Yeah. And
your Lego Disney castle.
Yeah. With more rewatches and then growing up, I do like Father's Day more, and I do appreciate it more than what I used to as a child, because I think as a child I just thought it was slow and boring. The long game, however, I can't remember much of what I thought about it when I was younger, which probably is a big indication. Even looking at the next time trailer, I was kind of like, Simon Pegg. And that was about it.
So much of the next time trailer was just that guy talk about Kronk burgers. I'm like, you couldn't have picked something more exciting to put in.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's very strange, but it does set up. It will set up the series finale. It's just an episode we're going to have to get through. Yeah. And hopefully find some good points in this. I hope.
Chris Buxton, Billy Piper, Adam Leeds.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Well, even so, I don't think Chris Ferguson has that much to do in the next episode.
I genuinely can't remember.
I'm not because I don't know. It just for some reason to me in my brain it feels very Doctor Companion light because we've got the whole Adam goes to meet the mum from Friday Night Dinner and I don't know. It's gonna have. I think it's gonna have some good like political commentary in it. Obviously, with the whole media side of things.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be maybe a positive, depending on how well it goes. It could be that the face of both children is my positive.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how the CGI holds up on the mighty Jagrafess of
Yes.
the Holy Hadrajasic Maxon
Yep.
Rodent or whatever it is.
Max.
I call him Max. Which they then reuse in Voyage of the Damned.
Yep. Speaking of CGI, the Dalek CGI in this episode, I think was fine. It was fine when it was on the floor. It was fine when it was like twisting to shoot people. I think when it levitated was when it was a bit dodgy. It was more cartoony and smooth, I guess is the word I'd use. Because if you compare that to the Daleks flying that we saw in Revolution, just gone.
Yeah.
Like there is a stark difference, but again, it's 15 years difference in technology from that, so you can't really. There's very little CGI in this episode, and the CGI that is used doesn't harm it.
Yeah, I think that Dalek design is pretty timeless. They're still using it now. It looks great.
Oh yeah, I mean I guess that's another thing we didn't even touch on is that this is the first time we sort of see this Dalek design. They had a complete sort of reworking of it. This wasn't seen in previous incarnations really. So a plus. Did you prefer the classic Dalek design, or is this your favorite one?
I think they're both great, to be honest. I love the silver and blue ones in the classic series. I kind of wish we saw more of them, but I think these ones look like they're metal and look a bit more physically imposing. I think they're a lot like wider and stuff. Thick boy. So I like that aspect of them. I think, it's just a timeless design, but I do have a soft spot for these ones. These are like my first Daleks I think I remember seeing.
Yeah, I think this one definitely, I remember at the time sort of reading the thing where they were like, we made these Daleks make sure that they looked like they could kill you rather than you could just hit them with something and they'd fall apart. Even though there's still a guy inside going, just to run after him. Or was it all done by, I can't remember if it's done by people inside or remote controls at the minute.
Oh, that's true. I think this one might have been remote control. I can't remember.
I think they definitely use remote controls for the head.
Yeah.
But yes, that's enough waffling from us, I think. We'll be back with the long game next week. So please stick around for that. You won't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this...
If you want to see us criticize Doctor Who, join us next week.
If you want to see us finally get our teeth into it, next week's for you. I will link Liam's YouTube channel below where he posts a lot more content, ranging from the now controversial Buffy show to WandaVision and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So if there's anything that tickles your fancy, head along to his. I'll also link our two Twitters below where we tend to post a lot of news around everything going on. So if ever you think, I wonder what's happening, just check out one of our feeds and you'll be up to date. But if you like this, then by all means subscribe to this channel. It's only weekly at the minute because I hate my life. So but if you want to stick around, subscribe, give it a like, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Tally ho.
Kill yourself.
The Daleks must survive!
The Daleks have failed! Why don't you finish the job and make the Daleks extinct? Rid the universe of your filth! Why don't you just die?